Hello everyone, I'm Justin, and this is a full recap of What If Season 1, released in 2021. If you end up enjoying this video and want to see more from us, then make sure to click that subscribe button and click the bell to know anytime we upload a new video. While there have been other projects released throughout the MCU's Multiverse Saga so far that have dealt with variants or other universes outside of the main MCU, such as Loki Seasons 1 and 2, Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, and the Marvels, none of them have delved into said other variants and universes quite like What If, since its entire premise focuses on looking through the multiverse to see how slight changes in the events we've watched play out could completely change the course of history. And now, 2 years after the debut season, What If Season 2 will be releasing on December 22nd, which is why today we've decided to take a look back at the series' first 9 episodes. The series opens with a narration from the Watcher, one of many all-knowing beings that observe the multiverse from the nexus of all realities, and who abide by an oath that prohibits them from interfering with the events occurring within the realities they observe, as he brings us back to Earth during World War II, moments before Steve Rogers was injected with the super soldier serum in the experiment that transformed him into Captain America back in Captain America the First Avenger, released in 2011. But while in our main Marvel universe, Steve's soon-to-be lover, Agent Peggy Carter, and the other onlookers were asked to watch from afar in a booth. In this universe, Peggy decides to stay by Steve's side, so the others watch from below alongside her, and this allows the undercover Hydra assassin, Heinz Kruger, to create an explosion before Steve's injected, rather than after, which kills Erskine, before then shooting and killing Colonel Chester Phillips as well, prompting Steve to exit the chamber in an attempt to stop him, but he's shot in the abdomen and paralyzed from the waist down for his efforts. Fortunately though, Peggy is able to gun down Kruger just before he can escape with the serum, and she then, with their window to complete the experiment closing, has Howard Stark run it on her. But although it successfully transforms her into a super soldier, the new head of the SSR, Colonel John Flynn, refuses to allow her to fight on the front lines, believing women aren't meant to be soldiers. She quickly gains the opportunity to prove him wrong though, after she and Stark discover that Hydra had gained possession of the Tesseract, which Flynn isn't too worried about, believing it's nothing more than a glorified battery. But Stark knows it's capable of being much more than that, so he fits Carter with a suit and vibranium shield to track down the gem, which she soon does, as well as capture Hydra scientist Dr. Arnim Zola. And with the newly acquired Tesseract, Stark's able to build and power an iron suit that allows Steve to join the fight as the Hydra Stomper alongside Peggy, now becoming known as Captain Carter. And together, the two successfully disrupt multiple Hydra operations. Tragedy does soon strike though, during an attack on a train they believe to be carrying Hydra's leader, Johann Schmidt, aka the Red Skull. But upon entering it, Steve walks right into a trap and is presumably killed by an explosion. Broken up by the loss and fueled by revenge, Peggy gathers her unit, which includes Steve's best friend Bucky, and heads off to the final Hydra stronghold to put an end to Schmidt and his army. And once there, they find a still alive but captured Steve, while the Tesseract is shown to now be in the possession of Schmidt, who's begun using it to create a wormhole from which a creature that he's named the Champion of Hydra emerges, although he's unable to control it and is promptly killed as the beast continues to grow larger and larger. Peggy's fortunately soon joined in fighting it off though by Steve, who's managed to momentarily power his suit with a generator, and as they battle, Stark begins shutting the wormhole down. But in order to shove the beast back through it, Peggy realizes she must sacrifice herself, and so she does, despite Steve's attempts to stop her, which are thwarted when his suit's power runs out. Captain Carter suffers a similar fate to our universe's Captain America following her sacrifice though, as upon eventually exiting the wormhole, she ends up 70 years in the future. We're then taken through another story within the multiverse, this time following a variant T'Challa, who, while in our main Marvel universe, went on to become both King of Wakanda and Black Panther, as seen in Black Panther released in 2018. In this universe, he's actually become known across the galaxy as the legendary Avenger Star-Lord, instead of Peter Quill seen in the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. To understand how this happened, we're taken back to 1988 as a young T'Challa expressed his desire to see the world outside of Wakanda to his father, King T'Chaka, but was assured that all he'd find was destruction and pain. Still, T'Challa escaped through Wakanda's border that night, but was promptly abducted by Ravagers Kraglin and Taserface, who'd been ordered by Yondu to capture a young Peter Quill, but got confused by Wakanda's cosmic readings and took him instead, frustrating Yondu at first, but he quickly took a liking to T'Challa and his desires to travel the world. So Yondu took him to instead travel the galaxy. Sometime later, he apparently looked to return T'Challa back to Wakanda, but he claimed by the time they arrived, Wakanda had been destroyed. So T'Challa continued to journey as a Ravager, and over time shifted their focus from just stealing for money to stealing to help the galaxy's less fortunate. This change in the Ravagers' way of life would also lead to changes in the course of history, as in this universe, T'Challa was able to put a stop to the Mad Titan Thanos' plans of decimating half of all life, and instead recruit him onto their unit, which in turn resulted in his adopted daughter Nebula not being as heavily scarred by the torture he would have put her through, as we see when she later meets with T'Challa to point him in the direction of the Embers of Genesis, nutrient-rich cosmic dust from an ancient supernova that with just an ounce could heal a dying planet in minutes. In order to steal the Embers though, they'll have to take on the Collector Tanalir Tavan, also seen in the Guardians trilogy, who's taken over as the intergalactic underworld's most ruthless kingpin and leader of the Black Order. So they form a plan to avoid him, with Nebula and Yondu arriving to sell him the recently acquired Power Stone, while sneaking T'Challa in so he can search throughout his collection for the Embers. T'Challa doesn't end up finding them though, and instead stumbles upon a Wakandan ship, inside of which a holographic message from his father reveals that Wakanda hadn't actually been destroyed, and that they're still searching for him. But before he can act on this, he's suddenly captured by Tavan and Nebula, the latter repaying a previously owed debt, and he's then locked up alongside his fellow Ravagers and Yondu, who he promptly calls out for lying to him about his home, but Yondu claims he was just trying to help him live out his dreams. Their confrontation's then interrupted as T'Challa's taken before the Collector, who's excited to now add Star-Lord to his collection. But those plans are soon thwarted when T'Challa breaks out of his cell with the use of his vibranium necklace and begins a battle with Tavan, while the Ravagers are broken out of their cell by Nebula, who reveals that this was all a part of her and T'Challa's plan to allow her to collect the Embers while he kept Tavan distracted. But this plan doesn't look to be working out too well on T'Challa's end, as Tavan's gained the upper hand in their battle with the use of various weapons collected throughout the galaxy. But T'Challa's fortunately saved by Yondu, who helps trap Tavan in his own cell before releasing his prisoners to attack him as they escape in the Wakandan ship found earlier. And after making amends with Yondu, T'Challa decides to take his found family home with him to Wakanda. Next, we're taken through a story during Fury's Big Week, during which the events of Iron Man 2, The Incredible Hulk, and Thor took place back in 2010, beginning the morning following Tony's meltdown at his own birthday party, as he's met by Nick Fury and Natasha Romanoff, who subsequently inject him with lithium dioxide to help negate the poisonous effects of the palladium powering his arc reactor. But in this universe, the injection suddenly kills him, forcing Fury to have Natasha arrested by Strike. He suspects someone else was behind the murder though, so he covertly hands her the antidote she'd injected Stark with so she can look into it without S.H.I.E.L.D.'s knowledge, and she goes to do just that after breaking out of their custody, while Fury's called away by Coulson, who had just found Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, just as we saw in the Iron Man 2 post-credits scene and in the Thor movie itself. Shortly after Fury's arrival though, Thor arrives as well and begins taking out their men on his way to steal back the weapon. So Fury and Coulson have Clint Barton watch from above, just as he did in our main universe. But this time, despite orders to hold his fire, an arrow shot through Thor's heart, killing him. Clint claims he didn't shoot though, but before they can discover what really happened, Clint's found dead in his cell, and Fury begins connecting the dots with all these murders, as Tony, Thor, and Clint were all on S.H.I.E.L.D.'s radar for the Avengers initiative. So he calls up Natasha and warns her that she, as well as Dr. Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk, are likely the killer's next targets. Natasha, throughout all this, had tracked down Dr. Betty Ross, the daughter of Colonel Thaddeus Ross, and love interest of Bruce Banner seen in The Incredible Hulk, so she can help look into the antidote, and the two discovered that it was actually a projectile that shot out of the syringe and not the antidote itself that killed Tony. Before Natasha then found Bruce Banner hiding within the lab as an attack team in search of him led by Thaddeus Ross arrived outside, resulting in Banner, after being shot in the shoulder, transforming into and rampaging as the Hulk. although not for long, as he suddenly begins uncontrollably growing before ultimately imploding. Meanwhile, back at the base surrounding Mjolnir, Fury's soon met by Asgard's army and Thor's adopted brother Loki, seeking vengeance for his brother's murder, and he attacks Earth with the Casket of Ancient Winters until Fury manages to talk him down and convince him to give them more time to find his brother's actual killer. And soon, Fury gains his biggest clue yet on the killer's identity, although at the cost of Natasha's life, who'd finally discovered who they were after hacking into S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Avengers Initiative files moments before they appeared behind, attacked, and killed her. Fortunately though, just before she was killed, she managed to send a message to Fury in which she warned it's all about Hope. And Fury soon realizes what this message means, so he heads over to the grave of Hope Van Dyne, seen in the Ant-Man trilogy, who's revealed in this universe to be a former agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. that died while on a mission. And there, Fury is met by her father, the original Ant-Man, Hank Pym, who's been in constant mental torment since her death, leading him to begin his own mission of taking down S.H.I.E.L.D., hence why he's attacked their team of superheroes. And he now looks to take Fury's life as well. But Hank proves to be no match for him, as Fury's revealed to actually be an illusion conjured by Loki, who Fury had approached and convinced to work alongside him, and who easily defeats Hank. Although it appears his business on Earth is concluded, Loki decides he wants to extend his stay, and has himself named ruler of the planet. So, to combat this, Fury begins building a new team of Avengers, starting with the recently uncovered Captain America, as well as Captain Marvel. On to another alternate reality now, this time focusing on Dr. Stephen Strange, who, in Doctor Strange released in 2016, we witnessed become a master of the mystic arts following a car accident that severely injured his hands. But in this universe, it isn't his hands that he loses, but rather his heart, as this time alongside him in his vehicle during the accident is Christine Palmer, who takes the brunt of the impact and dies as a result. Her death, though, pushes him to search the world for answers, and he eventually ends up in Kamar-Taj, resulting in the same events unfolding as our main universe, up to him defeating Dormammu and the Zealots. But this time, after coming out victorious, he finds himself unable to let go of the past or Christine, leading him to try and prevent her death with the Time Stone. No matter how many times he tries though, he's unable to reverse it, and his constant attempts eventually draw the attention of the Ancient One, who explains that the death of Christine Palmer is an absolute point in time, making it unmovable and unchangeable, as her death is where it starts for him to become Earth's protector against any mystical threats. Strange refuses to believe it's impossible though, and thinks he only requires more power. So, despite the Ancient One's warning that this path will only lead to darkness, Strange uses the Eye of Agamotto to transport himself back in time to the location of the lost books of Cagliostro, just as the Ancient One blasts him with beams. And there, he's met by Obang, the book's keeper, who allows Strange to begin studying them, and within the books, he discovers that he can gain the power to break an absolute point through the absorption of other beings, which is exactly what he does for the next several years, resulting in him gaining various new abilities. Once he's reached a sufficient amount of power, Strange prepares to travel through time once again and goes to say goodbye to Obang, now much older and on his deathbed, and who tries to explain to Strange that death is part of the plan. But he still refuses to accept that, a response Obang had expected, so he expresses hope that maybe the other Strange can, since as it turns out, there are actually two Doctor Stranges in this universe, the other of which we see is still seated in the Sanctum and has chosen against using the Eye of Agamotto to bring Christine back. Following this decision though, he's met outside the Sanctum by a psychic impression sent through a splinter in reality from the Ancient One, who reveals that earlier, when she blasted Strange, she had actually drawn power from the Dark Dimension to split the timeline, since she was unable to follow after him as he searched for the lost books, creating two Doctor Stranges in one reality in hopes that this Strange would be able to stop his alternate from reversing an absolute point and destroying reality. Upon encountering this other version of himself though, things quickly lean in Strange Supreme's favor, and eventually, he's able to overtake the other Strange's soul. So with the two Stranges merged, Strange Supreme is finally able to bring Christine back to life. But this unfortunately results in exactly what the Ancient One had warned him about, as the reality begins to completely come apart, forcing Strange, in an attempt to stop this, to call out to the Watcher. But he refuses to violate his oath, and Strange Supreme is forced to watch as his universe and Christine cease to exist, leaving him trapped alone inside a pocket dimension. Moving on to another story focusing on the end of the world now, beginning when Bruce Banner comes crashing through the ceiling of the Sanctum following Thanos' attack of Asgard's ship in Avengers Infinity War released in 2018. But upon returning to Earth, Bruce quickly learns that it's been overrun by zombies, as he's attacked by zombified versions of Iron Man, Doctor Strange, and Wong. Fortunately though, he's saved just in time by the Wasp, Hope Van Dyne, whose family actually plays a part in how this all started. We learn that Hank Pym, after finally making it into the Quantum Realm to reunite with Janet Van Dyne, which we witnessed him successfully do in Ant-Man and the Wasp, released in 2018, was in this universe promptly attacked and zombified by his deceased wife, who had contracted a quantum virus that corrupted her brain. And the two zombies then returned home through the quantum tunnel and quickly began infecting people across the planet, including multiple Avengers. A few heroes have still managed to avoid the virus though, including the Wasp, the Winter Soldier, Happy Hogan, Kurt Gorster, Sharon Carter, Okoye, and Spider-Man, who, now along with Bruce, have begun a journey to Camp Lehigh in New Jersey, hoping it'll have the equipment to fabricate a cure. Their journey is soon interrupted though by zombie variants of Hawkeye and Falcon, who promptly zombify Happy as well, but the group's able to put them down and hop on a train, where they're then joined by a zombie Captain America, who quickly infects Sharon before being killed by Bucky, who's forced to slice his best friend in half with his own shield, while Sharon's subsequently killed by Hope. Although, in doing so, she ends up infected as well due to some of Sharon's zombie guts getting into a previously opened wound. Things then get even worse after this, as their train suddenly runs out of fuel. So Hope, aware that her time's run out, enlarges and allows herself to be attacked by a crowd of zombies as she drops the remaining heroes off at Camp Lehigh, where they're then met by the still alive Vision, who's been able to keep the zombies at bay with the Mind Stone embedded in his forehead, as it emits a sub-frequency that's not to their liking. And upon recognizing this, he'd begun running experiments to see if the stone was the key to a cure, and they appear to have been successful, as he was able to save the current Ant-Man, Scott Lang, although he's now left as just a head with no body. With this revelation, the heroes prepare to travel to Wakanda, the last human sanctuary on Earth. But those plans are soon interrupted after Bucky stumbles upon a still alive T'Challa, whose leg had been amputated so it could be fed to the zombified Wanda Maximoff, who Vision reveals he'd attempted to cure, but her powers resisted the treatment, so he instead chose to contain her and her hunger, as he was unable to bring himself to kill her. He does understand that what he's done is wrong though, and he now chooses to make things right as she breaks out of her cell and begins attacking the heroes, with her killing Kurt and Okoye, so he helps them escape the building before destroying it, trapping Wanda beneath the rubble. Although he still can't bring himself to leave her, so he instead removes the Mind Stone from his body and allows himself to die beside her, so the heroes can take it with them. But before they can fly off in a quad jet, Wanda emerges from the rubble, so Bucky stays behind to buy them some time along with Bruce, who's finally able to transform into the Hulk once again. And this allows Peter, T'Challa, and Scott to begin their journey to Wakanda and hopefully create a cure. But it looks like, in order to do that, they'll have to take down a zombified Thanos, who by this point had collected the remaining 5 Infinity Stones. Let's jump back to 2008 now, and to the events of the first Iron Man, as we follow Tony Stark just as his transport convoy is attacked by the 10 Rings. But this time, before one of his company's own weaponry could leave him severely wounded, he's saved by Navy SEAL Eric Stevens, aka Kilmonger, seen in the Black Panther film, who takes down the remainder of the 10 Ring soldiers before helping return Tony back home. Upon his return, Tony holds a press conference to appoint Eric as his company's new chief security officer. And during said conference, Eric reveals why he was in Afghanistan, as he'd been in the midst of a deep cover operation inside the 10 Rings when he'd uncovered plans to assassinate Tony Stark, ordered by Stark's partner, Obadiah Stane, who's then arrested after Stevens uploads evidence of his involvement online, prompting Tony, with Stane's position now open, to make Eric Stark Industries' new COO as a thank you. After a night of celebrating, the two end up discussing Eric's doctoral thesis from his time at MIT for an automated combat drone, which he'd hoped could replace human soldiers, but never had the technology to do it, at least until now, as Tony offers to help him build his project. They quickly run into some trouble though, as they struggle to find a sustainable power source, so Killmonger suggests they use vibranium, and Tony believes he knows just the guy that could acquire some, that being Ulysses Klaue, seen in Avengers Age of Ultron released in 2015 and Black Panther in 2018. But in order to make the deal, they'll need to keep it hidden with a diplomatic cover, so they decide to send in Tony's close friend, Colonel James Rhodes, and a few other US soldiers. The deal goes south quick though, following the arrival of the Black Panther, Prince T'Challa, who takes down Rhodey's men as well as Klaue, and urges Rhodes to let him take the vibranium back where it belongs. But their discussion is immediately interrupted by the arrival of Kilmonger, wielding a portable Stark sonic cannon, which he uses to kill T'Challa before then taking his suit's gloves and stabbing Rhodes through the chest with its claws. Upon returning to Stark Tower with the vibranium, he's then confronted by Tony, who'd learned what really happened through footage captured by his AI Jarvis. So he locks Kilmonger in his garage with a completed model of the Liberator drone to be killed. But this doesn't work out, as Kilmonger manages to take it down with a Wakandan spear before then sending the spear through Tony's chest, whose death results in the US military taking control of Stark Industries, and they order for the Liberator drones to be put into production in preparation for a war against the Wakandans, who they believe murdered Tony. Once the drones are manufactured, Kilmonger again meets with Klaue so that he can bring him to the border of Wakanda. But once there, Kilmonger suddenly kills him and then brings his corpse into Wakanda as a sign of his loyalty, explaining that he's the son of Prince Unjobu in Jadaka and wants to help them in their war against the Americans, and King T'Chaka welcomes him with open arms. So, he leads Wakanda's army in their battle against the US's drones, which they ultimately manage to destroy, and as a reward for his bravery, Eric is made the new Black Panther. But although he believes he's tricked everyone into giving him what he wants, we see that there are two people that know the truth, with those two being T'Challa's sister Shuri and Tony's future wife Pepper Potts, the former of whom tracks down the latter and suggests they show the world who he really is. The next tale from the multiverse we see begins in 2010 and in place of the events of Thor, released in 2011. As Odin, the king of Asgard, falls into the Odin sleep to restore his power, while his wife Frigga heads off to celebrate the solstice with her sisters, leaving their son Thor, who in this universe is an only child, all alone. And as Frigga leaves, she makes Thor promise he won't throw any parties, since they always cause trouble. But Thor immediately goes back on this, and gathers Lady Sif, the Warriors 3, and various others from throughout the galaxy, to throw a huge party on what he believes to be the lamest planet of all the 9 realms, planet Earth. Since there, they won't need to worry about his mother, or Asgard's all-seeing gatekeeper Heimdall paying attention to what they're doing. His partying soon interrupted though, by Dr. Jane Foster, who along with her intern Darcy Lewis had been studying a mysterious weather event just before Thor and his friends arrived. So, hoping to gain a better understanding of all of this, she approaches Thor. But, instead of really learning anything, she quickly becomes infatuated with him and decides to join in on the partying. The next morning, she's then awakened by agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., who she tried to call earlier to warn them that an alien invasion was about to occur. So they've arrived hoping she'll have a solution, but she doesn't actually want to get rid of Thor now, so she's no help. And they're instead forced to call in Captain Marvel to take him out, and put an end to his and his friends' destruction of their planet. Upon learning that they plan on taking him out permanently though, Jane thinks up a better idea, believing that, since Thor exists, maybe an Odin, Frigga, and Heimdall do too. So she uses satellites to send a signal to Heimdall, which quickly works in getting his attention, and he then transports her to Frigga so she can inform her of Thor's whereabouts. And this prompts his mother to use dark magic to check in on and inform him that she'll be coming to see if he's actually studying like he said he would be. So, not wanting his mother to learn of his lies, he, along with his party guests, work together to clean up the planet and return it back to the way it was just before Frigga arrives to take him home. He does later head back to Earth though, to meet with and thank Jane for doing the right thing, as well as ask her out, and she says yes. The final of these tales from throughout the multiverse we see takes place back in 2015 during the events of Avengers Age of Ultron, in which Tony Stark's rogue artificial intelligence peacekeeping program named Ultron's plans of nuclear genocide were thwarted by the Avengers, after they got hold of the cradle containing the synthesoid body Ultron was planning on uploading himself into, and instead uploaded Tony Stark's AI Jarvis to create the Vision. In this universe though, the Avengers were never able to gain possession of the body, and in turn stop Ultron from uploading himself into it. So, with the infinite power of the Mind Stone, he's able to complete his mission. He doesn't just stop there though, as shortly following his victory, he's met by the Mad Titan Thanos, wielding the other 5 Infinity Stones. But before he can even attempt to use them, Ultron slices him in two with a blast from the Mind Stone, allowing him to gain possession of all 6 stones, which he then uses to destroy every corner of the universe. With his mission finally complete, Ultron finds himself without a purpose. That is until, as the Watcher explains, Ultron ascends to a previously unattainable level of consciousness.
He became aware of the... I see you.
Although frightened and confused by what he'd just seen, the Watcher believes there's still hope for this universe, since Earth still has 2 of its mightiest heroes, Hawkeye and Black Widow, who'd managed to avoid Ultron's attack on Earth while in space in the Avengers Quinjet, and we see them now in an old Hydra base in Siberia, where they quickly find a computer containing the mind of Arnim Zola, who they believe could be the key to taking Ultron down. So they upload his mind into one of Clint's trick arrows, and then transfer it into an Ultron sentry, through which Zola attempts to connect to and dismantle the Ultron hive mind, but he finds himself unable to. Before they can understand why that is, a bunch of sentries come storming into the facility and the heroes struggle to keep them at bay. So Clint's forced to sacrifice himself in order to create an explosion and destroy the bots, while Natasha escapes with Zola. And once having escaped, Zola explains that he was unable to connect to the hive because Ultron's not currently within the observable universe. And we see this is due to him having made his way into the nexus of all realities and begun attacking the Watcher, who he sends crashing through various universes before nearly killing him. But the Watcher just manages to escape, and then travels into the pocket dimension Strange Supreme had been imprisoned in earlier, as he feels he now has no other option but to violate his oath, and is in need of Strange's help to save the multiverse. Along with Strange, he also brings in the previously mentioned variants of Captain Carter, Star-Lord, Kilmonger, and Thor, as well as a variant of Gamora, who'd managed to defeat Thanos, and names them his Guardians of the Multiverse, believing they have the perfect combination of skills and experience to defeat Ultron. So the heroes prepare a plan for battle, in which they'll look to remove the Soul Stone from Ultron's armor and use Gamora's Infinity Crusher made on Nidavellir to destroy it, and things seem to immediately go pretty well, with T'Challa eventually managing to steal the Soul Stone in the midst of their battle. And once he does that, the heroes then travel back to the universe Ultron had originated and leave him to be attacked by the zombies we met earlier, specifically the zombie variant of Wanda Maximoff. Upon landing in this other universe though, the heroes are promptly met by Earth's remaining survivor, Natasha, who eventually joins the team as well after Peggy, who in her universe is one of Natasha's closest friends, manages to gain her trust. The team's then met again by Ultron following his battle with the zombies, but he's just too late as Gamora's still able to destroy the stone, or so they'd hoped, as they quickly realize that the device is only able to destroy the stones in her universe and not his. So he's once again able to gain possession of it and looks to rid of them once and for all. But his attempt is then thwarted by Peggy and Natasha, with the latter still in possession of the arrow containing Zola's mind, shooting it into Ultron's eye just as Peggy manages to remove his mask, and this allows Zola to destroy him from within. But immediately following their victory, Kilmonger connects his suit to Ultron's armor and takes the stones for himself, believing the Watcher owes them for their service, and he offers the others a chance to use them as well to fix their respective universes, but they refuse, so he attacks them. But his attack's soon interrupted by Zola, now controlling Ultron's body, as he attempts to take the stones as well. And in the midst of their struggle, Strange realizes that their mission wasn't to win, but to separate the stones from the body. So he traps Zola and Killmonger inside a pocket dimension, which turns out to be the exact outcome the Watcher foresaw. With the multiverse saved, the Watcher then returns Strange to his pocket dimension to watch over Zola and Killmonger, and ensure they never escape, while the others are sent back to their respective universes, except for Natasha, since there's nothing left for her in hers. So he instead sends her to the universe we looked at earlier that lost their Black Widow, and she helps their new team of Avengers defeat Loki and his army. Meanwhile, back in Captain Carter's universe, she reunites with her Natasha, who then reveals she's discovered something she might want to see, with that something being the Hydra Stomper, inside of which Natasha hints maybe Peggy's lost lover as the season ends. And that was our recap of What If Season 1. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful in any way, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And also, let us know in the comments below what if scenarios you would like to see play out in the future season. But once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.